Welcome back to the RKH podcast. I am so happy to have you. Welcome back. If you're not new, welcome hopefully forever. If you are, I'd love if you are following or subscribed to my channel. I am currently doing a series on narcissism. My name is Rami, Raminder, the RKH, and so many more names that I've had throughout the years. I'm a psychic healer, life coach, author, and former lawyer. I don't practice anymore, but I love to bring different perspectives into the work that I do, which is all about debunking the world we live in, understanding our life purpose, and so much more as well. So, on this episode, I'm going to be talking about narcissism and one of the stages that you can view and see and maybe have gone through or are witnessing around you, which is constant criticism. Criticism is an interesting thing because it's something that slowly starts to chip away when it comes to our confidence, our value, and our self-esteem based on the criticism we receive. This could be in partnership, this could be with parental figures. That's usually how it goes, maybe a boss, but the reason why it's usually a partner or parental figure or both is because we are duplicating a lot of our life lessons based on what we've gone through with our parents, with other generations, or what the older generations have gone through. Because trauma is something that doesn't leave our body. It stays with us for many generations, 7+ both ways. And so the healing we do helps the next generation. We also, unfortunately, kind of live with the trauma that we absorbed as a child. And that is a huge part of our purpose. A huge part of our purpose is unpacking that. So I want to talk about how criticism shows up in our lives. And like I said, it's something that starts to chip away at you through a lot of different remarks and gaslighting. In combination, it's seen as a threat and a problem. But it may be that at the beginning, you are seeing this criticism of who you are, your value, and your self-esteem as something that is quite minor. And I have been victim to that too. It was in combination when I looked at everything that had happened, I realized that, oh my gosh, I have a risk of being a shell of who I am. And so the purpose in creating this episode is to tell you and show you the ways in which it can come up and, of course, empower you to truly be the version of yourself that does not allow constant criticism in their lives, okay? So let's just look at the purpose, the reason why narcissists or people that are generally very toxic criticize you. I want to say that it is really hard to get an actual diagnosis of narcissism toward an individual, okay? That is a psychiatric, basically, diagnosis. The main symbols and themes are that you're going to see zero empathy, cold, dark eyes, sometimes a certain look in people's face. But overall, it doesn't mean that you don't see those traits. So this is not to minimize what you have gone through, even if a person does not have a diagnosis, okay? The diagnosis itself is really hard to get because of what kind of consistency people need to see. And also there may be other personality disorders at play, sociopath, psychopath, and they can be very mild at the beginning, bipolar, unregulated mental health concerns that lead to rage and anger. So we deal with a lot of moving parts as 3D individuals. And when we are kind of victims and survivors of this abuse, we have a hard time understanding why it happens. And one thing is we don't need to really look at the why. We're going to explore that, right? No matter the why doesn't mean that it was something that you should have gone through. And also it's good that we can't rationalize why certain people act a certain way. That's a good sign, okay? That's a good sign for you to be starting off with if you can't rationalize why somebody would be causing you harm. So constant criticism, it is a sign of projection. A lot of the time, people will criticize you when they feel insecure, right? A lot of the time, people will project what they don't like about themselves onto you to try to make you change, to make them feel better. And they'll do this in various aspects of these relationships, but also by criticizing you. They may tell you that, hey, you're not clean enough, or you're not doing enough, or you're not attractive enough, if they look in the mirror and feel like that about themselves. Rather than doing the internal work, they're going to look at a target outside of them. And a lot of the time, people that are empaths and very sensitive are going to become the target because they know that people are willing to bend. They know that individuals are going to break their back trying to prove to themselves that they're not that person, but also will empathize with the individual. What really empowered me was through my process learning about becoming the healed healer versus a wounded healer, because I was still in a scenario where I wanted to overly empathize with this sort of behavior and say, well, I know the reason why you're acting this way. Let me try to counsel you and coach you through it, which ended up being to my demise, but that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, having empathy. But what we really need to do is have boundaries and put basically our gauntlet down when it's enough time, right? When somebody is not empowering themselves to know themselves better. One more thing that I wanted to say at the beginning was, when we're talking about the diagnosis part, is because narcissistic type people or actual narcissists are very manipulative, they are never going to go unless they have an awareness of really wanting to change. They're typically, majority of the time, not going to go into a psychiatric or psychologist appointment and admit to a lot of their behaviors, because they actually believe that they're superior. They actually believe that they had a reason to act the way they did, despite the psychological, physical, spiritual, mental, whatever damage that it has done to you, which is never justified. They, in their mind, have justified their reaction towards you based on their own internalization and based on the projection of who they think they are based on how they see you. Because in our dynamics, most often romantically or any close intimate dynamic with, usually, like I said, a parent or a partner, the mirror projection is what we need to heal inside of us, right? And it doesn't, again, make anything right, but the mirror projection is showing us what work is required, right? And as empaths, we'll do the work, but it's really hard to get another person to do that. And if they are getting the help, it's great, but they also need to be honest in getting that help. So that's where the empath can get really caught in the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs. I've been in situations where it's been admitted, right? Or my ex admitted to doing certain things, but the behavior continued, right? So the accountability was not really there. There was an acknowledgement, and then there's a justification. There's an acknowledgement in counseling, and then it goes back to the same thing, and then it got worse, and and there ended up being excuses around that. So we have to be very, very careful of also the criticism that we take, because if we're making big changes in our life, if we're wanting to excel in whatever area of our life, if we're wanting to have, a positive, healthy dynamic within ourselves, receiving criticism during that time is very, very difficult. And the criticism, like I said, singularly may not be bad. It can get to the point of being really bad, but in combination is what ends up really getting you into a state of depression, spiked cortisol levels, survival mode, dysregulated nervous system, yada, yada, yada. So getting yourself to the point of seeing that can be difficult. So don't be hard on yourself if you've been in this scenario and you feel you stayed too long, or you're in this scenario and you're having a hard time getting out. I'm always here to help, but I want you to give yourself that grace, okay? Realizing how much of a dark orchestration it can kind of become. And at times not intentional, but because you are fighting with the dark, okay? So look at it as an energy versus a person. You're fighting constantly with this dark, maybe demonic energy, right? Which is this negative projection. So sometimes to just take the individual out of it, it's what is it trying to do? Why is it trying to take me down? Okay. So the criticism will be something that starts off small and then it will build. The criticism is something that will start off as a minor thing that you can forgive. in the hopes that it won't happen again. And once, unfortunately, they see that you can accept it and move forward, or you can, what ends up happening sometimes is you apologize for them hurting your feelings. The typical gaslighting, right? Turning it around. They're like, oh yeah, okay, I can get away with it. And so then it builds and then it builds. It's kind of like an addiction. For them, it's a dopamine hit. Like, what else can I get away with? What else can I get away with? What else can I get away with? And so the trajectory, it's just an uphill battle for you. For them, it's a rise in their dopamine. It's a sense of power for them. So it's pretty gross, okay? And that doesn't mean that you need to be a victim to that. So let me start off with a slight, a lot of gaslighting. So you express something and then they come back at you and tell you you're overreacting. It could be a slight look or a slight comment about your appearance. It could be a comment about something physical. It could be a comment about your style, right? It could be a comment about your choices, right? Those build, they make you question your intuition, right? Those comments make you question whether or not you're worthy of making certain decisions. It starts to chip at you of, why am I not truly seen for my highest potential? Those criticisms may then come in combination. They pick out of the pile. Let's combine these two. You've already heard it before, so you're like, okay, now it's combined, so it hurts more. And then it builds, it builds, it builds. And that is where it really starts to become apparent that there's abuse going on. And for some people, that could be months in. For some people, that is years in. Okay? A lot of the time, the narcissist wants to hook you, love bombing you, by overly providing for you in order to gain your love, affection, trust, stability, and empathy. And even though they're criticizing you, in your mind, you remember the time that they were good to you, which was a period of the love bombing phase, right? Like for me, when I get upset, or if I have a moment where I look back, those are the moments that get me, are those glimpses. And I remember my therapist said to me, Raminder, you shouldn't be looking at the 1% of good times. You should be looking at the 99% of bad times sort of vibe, right? And it really puts into perspective. It's like you're chasing that little modicum of respect that you received, right? Because when you're constantly criticized for being who you are, and people around you are maybe promoting and enabling that behavior, or you just start to become so accustomed to be treated that way by a parent or a partner, you start to lose a sense of your identity. And what they really want in this scenario is for you to give up your identity to become a conduit for them to project their anger. And so getting out of it can be difficult, but it will save your life on many levels, more specifically, mentally, spiritually, psychologically. Hopefully it won't get to that point of, the physical stuff, but you're going to go into reactive abuse. Maybe you might go into a psychotic break. You might go into fighting in all these different ways, right? And so what your intuition is trying to do at that point is get you out of that scenario. They're trying to get you back into your own body. So this comes in varying degrees. And like I said, sometimes it'll show up months in, sometimes it'll show up years in. But these are the signs and symbols to look out for if you think maybe there's red flags. It's going to start off as very small criticism. And what we need to really remember is any sort of partner or any people in alignment that we have in our life are meant to uplift us. We don't need more burdens. We don't need more hardship, right? We don't need more stress. We need individuals that are going to help us be the best version of ourselves. So that's a great gauge for anything in your life, right? We need individuals that are going to promote us, that are going to uplift us, that are going to love us, that are going to be around us and unconditionally support any endeavor. They're the person that is going to lift you up, not push you back down. And when we have a lot of trauma built in us generationally and from inner child stuff, and if this is a pattern that you've already witnessed in your life and now it's an internalized pattern and you're working through that, as in you saw a parent being a narc and now you have a partner that's a narc, right? Like something like that. You have a high tolerance. And it's also hard to accept a healthy dynamic. And the love bombing stage is difficult because you think you're in a healthy dynamic. And you don't really know until you've been in it to know that it is a sign and symbol of what's to come. So I want you to remember that whatever anybody says about you when you're in your authenticity, I don't want to say, if you've done something negative and someone says you've done something negative, that's not really an impact. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you know in your heart of hearts, I'm a good person. I've done good. I'm inspiring myself. I'm doing the work I need to do. All of these things. This criticism is not a definition of who you are. Everybody has the ability to change, but that's an individual thing. Everybody has the ability to change when they want to change. Everybody has the ability to change when they take that accountability, like I was saying earlier, when people can admit to the behavior, do something about it, and most importantly, if they're in an environment that allows them to be the new version of themselves. The company you keep is very important when it comes to healing. Are you constantly fighting against people that don't want growth and don't want accountability, that are not spiritually ascending? If you're the one that is, being mindful in your ascension, and what you'll look out for in that moment, hopefully from now on, is, are you being criticized for ascending? Are you being criticized for making changes in your life that are more in alignment for you? Because a supportive partner, supportive parent will not make you feel bad for choosing something that makes you happier. Right? Like I said, we can become just really used to having that internalized shame, misogyny, patriarchal stuff. And so we're okay with the criticism because generations of people before us were okay with the criticism, more specifically for women. They were okay with being ostracized, or they were okay with being in survival mindset. So when you're criticized, you're like, yeah, let me keep working for it. Let me keep working for it. Let me keep working for it. But the question at that moment becomes, why do you keep running away from yourself? You have everything you need within you. You have all of the power. So continue to do the work, right? That's going to allow you to be that best version of you. Look out for the little criticisms that are turning into compound criticism. So 2 criticisms are being combined, and then it's going to expand and expand and expand. And you're going to look back and you're going to see, I should have left when that first criticism happened. But this is your sign, if you are facing that there are many more things to come if they have not already. And we're going to explore all of these things when it comes to toxic relationships and dynamics, narcissistic relationships, narcissistic styles. Like I said, that the diagnosis is something that is hard to get. So we just want to look at the patterns so that you can make healthier, more informed decisions. All right. If you want to work with me one-on-one, I'd absolutely love to work with you. You can book a call with me in the link in my bio. I also have my relationship bootcamp, which is going live on September the 1st. So my membership will be morphing into a relationship bootcamp, which is all about having a healthier relationship with ourselves and understanding our relationships external, which is love life, parent, friends, and family. I would absolutely love to have you there. If you have any questions about my services, you can contact me via my website, therkh.com. If you haven't already reviewed my podcast, I'd absolutely love if you do. I hope to see you next time. Thanks for being here. Take care.